Hi, this is Shira Rubinoff. Welcome to Insights in Tech. I'm here with Steve Katz. Steve, such a pleasure to have you here, also known as the world's first CISO. So, very honored to have you here on the show. Steve, for those who don't know, can you please share a little bit about your background, of what you've done and what you're currently doing?
My pleasure. It's been involved in cyber risks, information security way before it had any kind of name or identification. When I came out of university, I joined a internal consulting group at First National, I guess Citicorp, or First National City Bank at the time. And our first brush with security was requiring that we build in ID, password, and user IDs modules in COBOL and Fortran code. Uh, way before it was possible, and by today's standards, it was absolutely absurd because these are all clear text kind of things.
Right.
But it was different, and one of the forgotten pieces of history is more and more people are requiring applications to have ID and password modules. Uh, and out came mainframe security, RACF, top secret, ACF2. And one of the benefits of the mainframe security was something we've all been looking for years. It was single sign-on, because it got rid of, by and large, the security requirements and application code.
Sure.
Interesting part was when it first came out, and it was at Morgan Guarantee at the time, the federal regulators required that companies, banks actually, purchase a mainframe security product. So everyone went out and did their job, went and purchased it. And it took a year or two before the regulators said, and now you have to install it. So,
So
so
you were
people,
involved right from the beginning.
what was really cool is that because I was able to mention security, I secured my background with the ID and password modules. When Morgan Guarantee was looking to start its data security program, I was asked to come over and help get that started. And at that time, again, it was strictly mainframe. Getting them, in that case, it was RACF. I raised a bit of a stir because with RACF, you could either open it up to everybody, access all, or you could lock everyone out, access none. And they had installed access all, so didn't make a lot of friends after sending out, emails and memo saying we're going to require you to sign on through the security program. After a month, we turned it on, and RACF required that no one could have access if they had an ID and password, and didn't make a lot of friends with that one.
Mhm.
Which is, I guess, the life of the security professional. You try and do the best with this, and then it's a matter of going out and trying to explain why it was important. We did a lot of interesting things. Morgan was very early into the world of dial-in access, and they set in a number of dial-in lines into the funds transfer network, and we required IDs and passwords, obviously, with three bad password attempts, and you were locked out. And we're now going to require banks, so or customers of Morgan, to have to log in. And if the three invalid passwords, they're going to be locked out. And the marketing folks and sales folks went ballistic. And I said, we will have real-time monitoring, which my admin was looking at a screen. If anyone got locked out, we would call the banker, and banker would then call his client, but it gave him another opportunity to stay in front of his client. So instead of being a hindrance as they expected it to be, there was another chance for them to connect with their clients.
Well, it's an amazing thing to be a pioneer in all those types of
Oh my
security.
gosh.
Certainly not being so popular with instituting these levels of security measurement, to the world literally following your steps in order to have secure logins and stuff. And leaning towards that, I wanted to tug on your expertise in your CISO hat. So as COVID-19 hit, CISOs had to quickly pivot from working on their day-to-day tasks to working on long-term goals, to establishing varied secured connections for the organization's new remote workforce, at the same time having to maintain business as usual and protect against new cyber threats. So, Steve, being in the industry and a top CISO for as long as you've certainly had the pulse on what the biggest threats and challenges organizations are facing during this time. What would you say as COVID has dealt hard blows to businesses and the economy that organizations need to really focus on to move business forward as the workforce is starting to become a hybrid of remote work and in person? Obviously, dealing with your security expertise.
It brings to mind something we was talking about for years. Work is not where you go. Work is what you do, regardless of where you go. So companies have more and more given more and more members of their staffs, employees, the opportunities to telecommute, but never on the scale that we're seeing here. So the first concern people had was on is bandwidth. We know it's going to work, but we don't know if it's going to work at this scale. The second is we have to really make sure that we have really good handle on what normal performance versus atypical or abnormal performance is, because we have people coming in from different locations, which is far different from what you would expect normally. So it's readjusting any kind of user analytics to recognize that people are coming in from different locations and very often in very different time zones. The other is, and this has been my favorite soapbox going way back and continues to be, and that is the CISOs, I guess, who really got it absolutely right, said, let's get back to making sure we have a good handle on basics and fundamentals.
Exactly.
All the I guess essentially the equivalent of patching roads after a snowstorm. It's not pretty, but if you don't patch the hole, your brand new Mercedes is going to break an axle. Sure. So get back to simple fundamental things of ID and password control, privilege access management, vulnerability assessment, vulnerability management, making sure that firewalls have been configured correctly, and are you following up on that? How are you managing change control? How are you limiting and controlling what people can and can't do in the cloud? But again, fundamentals first, and a lot of the new and bright and shiny objects that we want to put in place, and probably for the best reasons in the world, now have been put on hold because you had to maintain survivability and reliability.
I love that you touched on being, going back to basics. I think I exactly agree with you. I think a lot of organizations are looking to, as you call, the bright and shiny objects, the new things. What could we implement over a layer over layer over layer, and forget to really tighten up on the fundamentals, as you highlighted. That's a very important point. Thank you for that. And Steve, we've begun to see digital transformation and transformation of businesses happen in ways we wouldn't have predicted to happen this quickly, but due to COVID-19, the shift has begun. So what security risks do you see on the horizon as businesses are moving towards this transformation within an industry?
I would, and no, not to contradict, I think for a period of time, companies have been looking at this whole digital transformation issue. Yeah. I think they finally realized that regardless of the sector you're in, they're becoming one huge pipeline, technological pipeline, to send their content out to their customers, their clients, and their employees. Yeah. So I don't care what business vertical you're in, you are to a very great extent a technology company that produces various sundry types of products. And this has just made them more and more aware of it. So again, back to fundamentals, but also understanding how do we know who's coming in? How do we effectively limit access and limit capabilities when they do come in? How do we also deal with potential security attacks, cyber attacks, when we're trying to keep the whole ship afloat and we don't have the full complement of resources that we would have under normal times? And how do we make sure that our employees are not as, continue to remember that email is an incredibly important attack vector. Yeah. And if you haven't brought in a really good, bright, shiny object to deal with email, as one, regardless of COVID or anything else, it's a great way to get in. It's the ideal, it's today's social engineering. Kevin Mitnick was the ultimate social engineer. Now it's all, the entry vector is email. And spear phishing is so incredibly accurate looking that you're going to click. So looking at products that will help you control clicking when you shouldn't. People saying, "Oh, gee, we don't trust email." That's the best and most effective means corporations have to communicate with their clients and with their staff. And now, if you're telling them you don't trust it, and you're not giving them an alternative of what to trust, where do you go? I'm not at all a fan of programs that say, "Gosh, we're going to throw out potential phishing emails, and after 3 strikes, we're going to take away your email privileges, or we're going to send a note to personnel." Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Something looks incredibly realistic.
I do.
And with spear phishing so articulately crafted, so it looks like it is coming from the person you're dealing with, you're going to click.
Sure.
And we're going to do that until we have some really good artificial intelligence around analyzing email patterns and who you deal with email, with whom you deal with email, and who do you really speak with, and what is the content you normally use.
Certainly.
So at least you have some front end email security beyond what you're going to have with DMARC.
Well, certainly points to the human factors of it. I think the one key piece I can tell organizations and people is stop and pause. I think we're all working so fast, so quickly, multitasking. Certainly with remote work, it's very difficult not to be multitasking on many devices, getting back to who they need to get back to, dealing with their people at home or who they room with. And it gets a little bit out of hand. So I very much agree with you that obviously email is very important to communicate, but we have to be able to decipher whether or not it is a phishing email, spear phishing email. And that, again, you could gain information off social platforms. And people overshare too much detail, which in turn leads to a level of trust when somebody knows too much about you, which in turn they'll be able to trick you. So those are great points, Steve. Thank you.
I mean, way back in the day, if you really were a bad guy, you might get a whole lot of information. If you were looking to get information about a Wall Street company, you go to Harry's at Hanover Square, and where a whole lot of folks hung out. You hang out at the bar, you find out who's who and who's doing what. Now it's all available, whether it's Google or LinkedIn or any of the other technologies that are there. So getting information is incredibly easy, and which makes spear phishing incredibly easy.
It is. And what would you say as we're moving towards, let's call it the future of work, as things are progressing at a little bit more of a rapid pace than had COVID-19 not hit? What do you see being the next area that we're going to see a quick movement towards?
If I were sitting in any of my old jobs, I would be pushing for the best AI ML technology I could possibly find. Yeah. I get springtime summer allergies now. You wind up getting data feeds from I don't know how many threat intelligence services you get them. You wind up with you taking your own, getting some sense of what your asset inventory is, both hardware and software. You wind up looking at some of your own vulnerability management technologies. Gosh, I would like to do nothing more than have them all come into one smart AI engine and give me actionable information, where I take as much data as possible, analyze it as quickly as possible, and give me some guidelines to take meaningful action. There's a limit to what human beings are going to do. And right now we get so much information coming in or data coming in, we overload our socks. They're not quite sure which way to turn. But I think we are, if we take basic security fundamentals, and that's your change management, that's your privileged access management, that's your ID and access control management, that's your vulnerability management, configuration management, and data feeds. And data feeds coming in off the internet, and and data feeds you're getting off your third-party providers. Bring it into one huge analytical engine and say, I'm going to be the deity for all information security issues for this particular company.
Excellent.
And it's doable today. People have not taken the, I guess companies are trying in certain spaces. Love to see a lot more of it. Because we're juggling so many balls. The attacks are getting more and more sophisticated.
And they're continuing and just getting stronger. Well, Steve, thank you very, very much for your share and your time today. Always a pleasure speaking with you.
My pleasure, Shira, and look forward to staying in touch.
Always. Have a great day. Thank you, Steve.